Here's $50. I just need a dad for one day.
Sir, please don't walk away. This isn't a game. The billionaire stopped. In front of him stood a 5-year-old girl clutching a crumpled $50 bill like a lifeline. I saved every dollar so someone would pick me. Just for one day, she whispered. But if you leave now, does that mean I'm not worth even that? His hand froze mid-step. The world watched. Would he keep walking, or step into the one role money could never buy? He hadn't planned to say yes to anyone again, but 5 years is a long time to hold a door shut. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy this story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one, and you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. Before the swings and the ice cream, before the day dared to call him Dad, there was the night sky over a runway and the phone call that split his life in two. That was the last time Jeffrey Brown believed he could keep what he loved. And now here he was, following a 5-year-old girl in a sunflower dress down a sunlit park path as if grief itself had stood aside to let her pass. Sharon didn't walk. She skipped, tiny shoes tapping out a rhythm against the paved path. Jeffrey's long strides had always been calculated, purposeful, designed to dominate a boardroom. But now, his steps slowed to match hers, drawn by something unfamiliar, something dangerously close to peace. "Do you like sprinkles?" she asked without looking back. He hesitated. "I haven't thought about it." "That means yes," she declared. "People who don't like sprinkles are usually villains." A small, startled sound escaped Jeffrey's throat. Not a laugh. At least, not at first. But it expanded in his chest, unexpected, unwelcome, inevitable. They reached an ice cream cart, its bright umbrella fluttering in the breeze. Sharon pressed both hands to the counter. "One vanilla with rainbow sprinkles. And for my dad?" Jeffrey froze. "My dad likes chocolate," she finished proudly. The vendor, a gray-haired man with kind eyes, smiled at Jeffrey as if this made perfect sense. "Chocolate, then?" he asked, already scooping. Jeffrey didn't correct him. They sat on a low wall near the fountain. Sharon's legs dangled as she kicked the air, humming. A drip of ice cream slid down her wrist. Without thinking, Jeffrey reached into his pocket and handed her a monogrammed handkerchief. White, silk, pristine. She wiped her face with the full force of a child who had never owned something delicate. He didn't mind. Nearby, ducks waddled toward the water. Sharon jumped up. "Come on, Daddy, they're having a really important meeting." Jeffrey followed. She tossed crumbs from her cone. The ducks swarmed, quacking in approval. He watched her laugh, head thrown back, sunlight catching the curls at her temples. And for a moment he saw Lily, not in the features, but in the freedom. The unguarded joy he once promised to protect. His chest constricted. This is temporary, he reminded himself. Just a kindness, nothing more. But the lie tasted bitter. Later at the playground, Sharon climbed the first rung of a swing and looked back. "Push me high, Daddy. I want to see the sky." He stepped behind her. His hands that signed billion-dollar contracts, wrapped gently around the swing chains. He gave a push. She soared upward with a squeal that cracked something open inside him. "Higher!" He pushed again, each swing a heartbeat echoing into the air. Parents nearby glanced his way. Some smiled. One mother leaned toward her toddler and whispered, "Look, honey, her daddy's pushing her. Isn't that sweet?" The words hit harder than any boardroom betrayal ever had. Daddy. Not CEO, not billionaire, not Mr. Brown. Just Dad. He stepped back abruptly from the swing, pulse racing. Sharon dragged her feet to stop, then turned to him, puzzled. "You okay?" He nodded once. She grinned and grabbed his hand. "Come on, it's almost time to feed the turtles." Jeffrey let her pull him along the path, each step chipping away at the walls he'd spent years building. As they exited the playground, the sun dipped lower, painting the sky with streaks of orange and gold. Sharon pointed across the park toward a quiet neighborhood nestled among oak trees. "That way," she said happily. "Mommy is going to be so happy I finally found us a real dad." Jeffrey stopped walking mid-step. Real dad. The words echoed, louder than the fountain, louder than the children, louder than the grief he thought had permanently deafened him. For the first time all day, his heart didn't just ache, it woke up. And that terrified him more than anything. The neighborhood was quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that carried secrets. As Sharon tugged Jeffrey down the narrow walkway, flower pots lined the porch like silent witnesses. The late sun dipped behind a row of maple trees, casting long shadows over the weathered steps. "This is our house," Sharon announced proudly. "Mommy says it's small, but I think it's perfect. It has a porch that listens." Jeffrey almost smiled at that, but the weight pressing on his chest was growing heavier with every step. The screen door creaked open before they reached it. A woman stood framed in the doorway. Her presence was quiet yet commanding, brown eyes sharp, protective, scanning every inch of the suited stranger holding her daughter's hand. Strands of dark hair had fallen from a messy bun. The exhaustion of a caretaker clung to her posture, but it was the kind of exhaustion that came from endless sacrifice, not defeat. "Sharon," she said slowly, voice tight with alarm. "Who is this?" Sharon lifted their joined hands like a trophy. "Mommy, this is my dad. For today, I paid him $50. Jeffrey flinched. Monica's eyes widened. Her grip on the doorframe tightened. "You what?" Sharon fumbled in her pocket and proudly pulled out the wrinkled $50 bill. "See? I brought it the whole time. He didn't even take it. But he still did dad things. He pushed me on swings. He got me ice cream. Inside," Monica cut in, her gaze never leaving Jeffrey. She ushered Sharon behind her, shielding her with her arm. Then Monica stepped onto the porch, face inches from Jeffrey's. "Who are you?" she demanded. Jeffrey reached slowly into his jacket and pulled out his wallet, not to intimidate, but to offer his business card. "My name is Jeffrey Brown. Monica's eyes widened as recognition struck. The name was on the card. The face was from the news. Billionaire. CEO. Untouchable. Sharon peeked around her mother's side. "Mommy, he's not scary. He's rich, but he's nice rich. He laughed today." Monica's jaw clenched. "Get inside, Sharon." "But Mommy..." "Now." Sharon retreated only one step, refusing to go farther. She lifted the phone in her hand, the screen still open. On it were photos. Jeffrey pushing her on the swing, Sharon laughing mid-air. The two of them standing in front of the fountain, sunlight in their eyes. Monica looked at the screen, then at her daughter, then at Jeffrey. Her voice lowered, dangerous. "Why were you with my child?" Jeffrey's throat worked as he searched for the right words, words that didn't exist. "She approached me," he said finally. "She asked if I could be her father for the day." "I didn't take her money. You only what?" Monica snapped. "Decided to play hero? Or do you do this often? Pick up other people's children in public parks?" Sharon stepped forward, hands balled into tiny fists. "Mommy, stop! He didn't take anything. He gave. He gave smiles and sprinkles, and he said I was brave." Monica turned to her daughter, grief flickering across her face. "Baby, you can't just bring strangers." "He's not a stranger anymore," Sharon insisted. "He's Dad." The word hung in the air, heavy, unavoidable. Jeffrey swallowed hard. "I should go." He stepped back. Monica didn't stop him. Her eyes were still storming, anger, fear, and something else, something dangerously close to hope. Jeffrey reached the bottom step when a small voice broke through the dusk. "Daddy!" He turned. Sharon stood on the porch ledge, eyes shining. "Please come back tomorrow," she said, louder this time. "Even if it costs more, I'll bring all my money." The breath left Jeffrey's lungs. He stood frozen on the path, unable to take another step forward or back. And behind Sharon, Monica did not tell her to stop. Not this time. The mansion greeted him with silence. Not peaceful silence, the hollow kind that echoed through marble and glass like a reminder of everything missing. Every footstep Jeffrey took down the long corridor bounced back at him, lonely, mocking, as if the house itself rejected the sound of life returning. He shrugged off his suit jacket, draped it carefully over a chair, and moved through the great room. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city skyline, but tonight the lights below felt distant, irrelevant. His watch beeped with unread texts from executives. He ignored them. On the ebony coffee table lay the object he couldn't look at in the car. Sharon's photo. He picked it up slowly, as if it might shatter in his hands, or worse, shatter him. There he was, in the late afternoon sun, fountain mist in the background. Smiling. Not the trained smile he wore for cameras, not the polite smirk saved for investors. A real smile, one he hadn't felt on his face in 5 long years. His fingers trembled. He sank onto the leather sofa, elbows on his knees, photo still clutched in his hand. Something inside him began to unspool. Lily would have loved the ducks. Lily always asked for extra sprinkles. His breath hitched, and with that, the memory took him. The smell of apple shampoo, a pink car seat in the back of the Range Rover. Lily's small voice humming nonsense songs as he buckled her in. "I can do it myself, Daddy!" He'd smiled back then, too. "I know you can, but I'm helping anyway. That's what dads do." She had giggled, tapping his nose with her tiny finger. "Then promise you'll always help." "I promise," he had said. He had meant it. Hours later, the phone call came. The plane she was on with Grace never made it home. The promise broke with the sound of sirens and static. And in the ruins of that night, Jeffrey made a silent vow. Never feel that deeply again. Never love what can be taken. Now, in the dim glow of his living room lamp, he stared at the photograph in his hand and knew that vow had already been broken by a 5-year-old girl with puff buns and sunflowers on her dress. A child who offered him $50, but gave him something worth more than every fortune he'd built. It wasn't pain he felt when she called him daddy. It was belonging. It was possibility. A life not lived after loss, but beyond it. His eyes burned. For a moment, he thought the house had gone blurry. Then he realized the tears were his. Jeffrey Brown, the man who hadn't cried in 5 years, was crying. And not from grief. From relief. The photograph slipped slightly in his hand. He caught it, held it tight, then stood abruptly. He didn't know where he was going. Only that staying here, within these cold walls of self-imposed exile, was no longer an option. He grabbed his keys. The door slammed softly behind him as he stepped into the night, not running from something this time, but moving toward it. Morning light spilled across the quiet neighborhood as Jeffrey's car rolled to a stop beside the Salvador home. He sat for a moment, engine off, heartbeat loud in the silence. He hadn't planned words. He hadn't made a strategy. He had only followed the pull in his chest that told him yesterday was not meant to end. The front door opened. Monica stepped out, locking it behind her, hair pulled back in a low bun. She wore scrubs, a travel mug in one hand, and exhausted determination in her walk. When she saw Jeffrey standing at the path, she stopped short. "What are you doing here?" Her voice was steady but guarded. Before Jeffrey could answer, the screen door burst open. "Daddy!" Sharon flew across the porch steps, her backpack bouncing behind her. She launched herself at him without hesitation. Jeffrey caught her mid-air, instinctively lifting her with both arms. The world, for a moment, felt exactly right. Monica's eyes flicked from her daughter's glowing face to Jeffrey's stunned but softened expression. "I came to see if I could take her to school," Jeffrey said gently, setting Sharon down but keeping her hand in his. "If that's okay with you." Monica hesitated. 1,000 fears flickered behind her eyes, but Sharon was already beaming up at her mother, hope shining like sunrise. "Please, Mommy? Please? He knows how to tie double knots now." Monica's breath slowly released. "Be back by 3, she said, eyes locking with Jeffrey's in a silent warning. "No detours, no reporters, no surprises." Jeffrey nodded once. "You have my word." Sharon tugged him eagerly down the sidewalk. "Come on. If we're late, they make you sit with the babies." At the school gate, parents milled around, saying goodbyes. Sharon didn't hesitate. With the confidence of someone who had claimed her deepest wish, she marched up to her group of classmates. "This is my dad," she announced loudly. "He's taking me to school because that's what dads do." Whispers rippled. Some children nodded. Others stared. A boy with freckles stepped forward, arms crossed. "You told us yesterday you don't have a dad," he challenged. "You can't just buy one." Sharon's smile faltered. "I didn't buy him," she began. "Yes, you did," another child chimed in. "You said you paid $50. That's not a dad, that's pretend." The words hit like stones. Sharon's shoulders sagged. Her backpack slipped down one arm. Her eyes, so bright moments ago, filled with tears she fought hard not to let fall. Jeffrey stepped forward. Not as a CEO, not as a man performing kindness, but as someone finally stepping into a role he was born for. He lowered himself onto one knee at eye level with the children and spoke in a calm, firm voice that carried across the playground. "She didn't buy a dad," he said, each word anchoring itself in the air. "She found one." Jeffrey stood just outside the school gate as the bell rang. Sharon waved goodbye with both hands, as though afraid he might vanish if she didn't tether him there with her smile. When the doors finally closed behind her, Monica stepped into view. She had come straight from her shift. Dark circles beneath her eyes, scrubs wrinkled from a long night of caring for strangers. But the look she gave Jeffrey wasn't exhaustion. It was fear. Wrapped in anger, anchored in love. "We need to talk," she said. They walked to a quiet spot near a row of oak trees lining the school parking lot. The wind rustled the leaves above them, echoing the tension in the space between. "This is not your life," Monica began. "My daughter, she's not an investment or a charity project." Jeffrey exhaled slowly. "I know that." "Do you?" Her voice trembled, not with weakness, but with the effort of holding back everything unsaid. "Because you, billionaire. Headlines, cameras, a life that swallows everything it touches." He didn't argue. He'd built that life. She continued, softer now. "Sharon, she cries at night. She thinks she's unloved because she doesn't have what other kids have. You showing up gave her hope. But hope is dangerous if it's temporary." Jeffrey met her eyes. "Isolation was my choice," he said quietly. "After my daughter Lily died, I locked everything away. Not because love didn't matter, but because it mattered too much. Grief wasn't killing me, hope was. Hope made me miss what I lost." Monica's expression shifted, something in her heart recognizing the shape of his pain. She turned away, staring at the school windows where children's silhouettes danced against classroom walls. "My daughter saved every coin she found under the sofa," Monica whispered. "She kept asking me if $50 was enough to feel normal. I told her she didn't need a dad to be whole." Her voice broke. "But she looked at me with those big eyes and said, 'Mommy, you're enough for me, but I'm not enough for them.'" Silence fell over them, not empty, but sacred. They stood in shared understanding. Not as a billionaire and a single mother, not as man and woman, but as two people deeply familiar with loss and terrified of letting hope in again. A soft, chirping sound broke the moment. Jeffrey glanced down. His phone buzzed with emails, meetings, board demands, crisis alerts, life calling him back to the empire he'd built to distract himself from the emptiness. He silenced it. Monica watched. "You can walk away now," she said quietly. "Before she loves you, for real." Jeffrey didn't speak right away. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, folded paper. Sharon's drawing. 3 stick figures standing in front of a small house with a sunflower in the yard. The tallest figure had broad shoulders and a smile. Above it, in big purple letters, "My family, me, Mommy, and Daddy." Monica's breath caught. "She drew this last night," Jeffrey said, "after I left." Monica pressed a hand over her mouth. For a long time, neither of them moved. Then a car door slammed in the distance. A suited man exited a black vehicle across the street. A recognizable face. Daniel Cole, media director for Brown Enterprises. Jeffrey stiffened. Daniel paused, lifted his phone, and snapped a picture. Flash. Jeffrey wasn't just a man outside a school. He was a billionaire photographed with a child the world did not know existed. And in that flash of light, everything changed. Within hours, news anchors debated it. Bloggers speculated. Social media exploded with theories and accusations. By evening, cameras had arrived. Big ones, with logos. The once quiet street outside Sharon's home was now a thunderstorm of microphones, live broadcasts, and satellite vans. Reporters called out questions as if shouting louder would force the truth. "Mr. Brown, are you hiding a relationship? Is this your illegitimate child? Are you funding this family? Has the girl's mother been paid to stay silent?" Monica stood at the window, fists clenched, pulse panicking. Her world, her safe, modest existence, was under siege. And it wasn't just noise. It was danger. There were strangers now standing on the same street Sharon played hopscotch. A black car rolled up the driveway. The cameras spun toward it like vultures turning toward movement. Jeffrey stepped out. The crowd roared with questions. He didn't answer. His eyes were fixed only on the house, on the girl pressed to the glass window, her small hand outstretched as if touching him through distance. Monica met him at the door before he could knock. "What did you do?" Her voice was shaking with rage and fear. "Do you have any idea what you've brought to our doorstep?" Jeffrey kept his voice calm. "Monica, I didn't leak anything. It was someone who saw me at the school." "That's exactly the point," she snapped. "You don't get to walk into people's lives without consequences. You're not a normal person. You are a global headline. And now my daughter, my 5-year-old baby, is being talked about like she's a scandal." Flashes lit the window. Reporters shouted. Sharon stepped out from behind her mother. Her curls were slightly messy, her eyes wide, not with excitement this time, but fear. Jeffrey crouched to her level. "It's okay, sweetheart. No one is going to hurt you." Sharon looked from him to her mother. "Mommy's scared," she whispered. "Are we in trouble?" Monica stepped between them, voice trembling. "We need space. All of this ends now. Whatever pretend game this was, it's over." It wasn't pretend. Jeffrey said quietly. Not to me. Monica's eyes hardened. Then let me ask you something real. Are you willing to disappear to keep her safe? Or do you plan to move us into some mansion so you can own us, control us, make decisions we never agreed to? I want to protect you, he said. You want to claim us, she fired back. A small sob cut through the tension. Sharon stood frozen on the doorway, tears streaming down her cheeks. Did I do something wrong, Daddy? She choked out. Are you leaving because I asked for you? I won't ask again, just don't go away forever. Jeffrey's heart cracked audibly in his own chest. Monica's breath hitched, devastation stealing the anger from her eyes. Reporters, cameras, the frenzy. All of it faded into background static. In that moment, only one truth remained. He had the power to end their suffering instantly. He could walk away, or stay, and fight not just for them, but with them. Jeffrey looked at Monica, then at Sharon, then toward the door where voices clamored and cameras flashed. A decision had to be made, and whichever choice he made tonight, there would be no going back. The school auditorium buzzed with excitement and chatter. Handmade banners fluttered on the walls, each letter drawn in crayon. Family Day celebration. Rows of parents filled the folding chairs, greeting one another, adjusting phone cameras. But Jeffrey Brown sat in the third row, shoulders tense beneath his tailored suit. For once, the suit didn't feel like armor. It felt like a lie, because for the first time in years, Jeffrey wasn't here as a billionaire, he was here as her father. Beside him, Monica sat stiffly, arms folded, not in rejection, but in self-defense. Hope was more dangerous to her than any camera. Still, her eyes never left the stage where their daughter waited, clutching a folded sheet of paper with both hands. When Sharon's name was called, a hush fell. She walked onto the stage, small shoulders rising with a deep breath. The microphone stood taller than her. The teacher quickly lowered it. Sharon looked out at the sea of faces. Her lips trembled. For a heartbeat, Jeffrey feared she would run off stage. Then she unfolded the creased paper and began to read. When I started school, she said, voice wavering, I didn't have a dad, and the other kids told me that meant something was wrong with me. Whispers stirred. Some parents glanced at each other. I tried to pretend it didn't matter, she continued, blinking back tears. But at night, I wished I could be like everyone else, so I saved $50. She lifted the bill, wrinkled from love, not neglect. I thought, maybe that's how much it costs to have a dad for one day. A murmur swept through the room. Shock, sorrow, disbelief. Sharon turned, eyes searching. When she found Jeffrey, her trembling stopped. I didn't buy a dad, she said, voice rising with new strength. I found someone who stayed. Every breath in the room seemed to catch at once. She pointed directly at Jeffrey. He's not my pretend daddy. He's my real one, because being a daddy isn't about blood or money. It's about someone who doesn't run away when it's hard, someone who still shows up the next day. Her voice cracked. I asked for one day, but he gave me more. For a moment there was silence, thick, trembling, sacred. Then Jeffrey stood. Not because he planned to, because he had to. Every step he took toward that stage felt like shedding chains he didn't realize he'd been dragging. He climbed onto the stage, heart pounding, not with fear, but with certainty. Sharon ran into his arms, burying her face in his chest. He lifted her easily, holding her as if she were made of breath and destiny. The audience, parents, teachers, children, rose to their feet in a wave of applause. Some were crying, some were cheering. All were witnessing something rare. In the front row, Monica covered her mouth. Tears streamed down her face. Not from shock this time, but release. Her daughter was no longer the child left out. She was the child chosen. And Jeffrey. He wasn't the lonely billionaire anymore. He was home. As the applause swelled to fill every corner of the room, Jeffrey looked over the crowd, straight at Monica. His eyes asked a question, not with words, but with an unspoken truth. Are you ready to let me stay? The sun dipped low across the horizon, turning the clouds gold as Jeffrey's car turned down a quiet lane. It wasn't the road that led to his skyscraper penthouse or any gated billionaire estate. This was a neighborhood of front porches and mailboxes shaped like birdhouses, a place where laughter echoed in the evenings and neighbors waved just because they could. Monica sat in the passenger seat, silent but no longer guarded. Sharon pressed her face eagerly to the window, bouncing with excitement. "Are we going to a park?" she asked. "Something like that," Jeffrey said, smiling. The car slowed in front of a white two-story home with pale blue shutters and a wraparound porch. A small garden stretched across the front yard, freshly planted sunflowers, their heads turned toward the fading light. Sharon gasped. "Sunflowers!" Jeffrey stepped out and opened her door. She ran ahead, spinning in the yard, arms out like wings. Monica stood still, eyes scanning every detail. The wide porch, the chipped paint on the steps, the wind chimes dancing softly above the entryway. "It's not a mansion," Jeffrey said quietly, coming to stand beside her. "It's not meant to impress the world." His gaze followed Sharon, who was now kneeling in the dirt, whispering something to one of the sunflowers. "It's meant to belong to us," he finished. Inside, the house was warm. Not grand, warm. Soft yellow walls, a fireplace, a table set for 3. On the living room wall, a frame already hung, Sharon's crayon drawing. 3 figures, hand in hand, beneath a sunflower. Monica covered her mouth, tears filling her eyes. "You hung it." "It's the first thing I did," Jeffrey said softly. His voice trembled now, not from fear, but from full sincerity. "Because this house isn't complete without the people who made me remember why homes exist in the first place." Sharon ran into the room at full speed. "Daddy! Daddy! There's a pink room upstairs with fairy lights. Is it mine?" Jeffrey turned toward her. Not as a visitor, as the man this moment had made him. He reached into his coat pocket, not for a ring, not yet, but for an envelope. He knelt on one knee. Monica's breath caught. Sharon froze, eyes wide. Jeffrey opened the envelope, revealing documents, papers edged with gold seals. "I don't want to be the dad you hired," he said, his voice breaking. "I want to be the father who stayed. If you'll let me, I want to make it forever." Sharon's hands flew to her mouth. Tears spilled down her cheeks before she sprang forward, launching herself into his arms. "I pick you forever," she cried, "even if it costs all my money." Monica stepped closer, tears streaming freely now. "Yes," she whispered, not as surrender, but as a vow. Jeffrey held Sharon tightly, one arm reaching to take Monica's hand. 3 hands, 1 future. Sharon squirmed slightly in his arms and pulled something from her pocket. The original $50 bill, creased, soft from being held for so long. She pressed it into Jeffrey's palm. "Keep it," she said, her voice trembling with a smile. "In case someone else needs a dad one day." Jeffrey closed his hand around the bill, not as money, but as the moment his life began again. Outside, the wind moved gently through the sunflowers, and inside that house, not a mansion, not an empire, but a home, a family was born. Thank you for watching to the end. I believe you enjoyed it. We have a lot of other interesting stories like this lined up for you already, so click the image showing on your screen to watch the next. Don't forget to subscribe.